Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Financing Your Accessory Dwelling Unit with Redwood Credit Union. We are so happy to be here with all of you this evening. Quick Zoom logistics before we dive into our content for the night. We invite the audience to submit questions specifically using the Q&A chat function that's available at the bottom of your screen. So please feel free to input your questions as you have them. We're gonna go ahead and turn to those questions at the end of our content this evening. And we've gone through and made sure that we have plenty of time for those questions at the end of the webinar. Before we continue, I have a quick poll for all of you that we're going to pull up here. We just love to hear, where did you learn of our webinar? This helps us as a nonprofit organization continue to ensure that we are proactively reaching out to our community members to make sure that they're aware of our services and about accessory dwelling units in general and their local ADU rules and planning and permitting processes. So thanks for answering that poll and sharing with us where you learned of the webinar this evening. We really appreciate it. And we'll just give you a second there. For folks who are joining us, we're just asking for feedback on where you learned of this webinar before we kickstart our content for the evening. Thank you all so much for answering that quick poll there. All right, so thank you all once again so much for joining us. We're looking forward to talking to you about accessory dwelling units this evening and more specifically how you can finance your ADU with Redwood Credit Union. My name is Renee Shawn and I'm the director of the nonprofit Napa-Sonoma ADU Center. I'm joined this evening by some really wonderful folks who I'll be introducing to you shortly. And I first want to say a special thank you to Amity, our admin support superwoman, who is taking care of all of the behind the scenes Zoom logistics for us tonight. With that, I also want to introduce you to my colleague, Scott Johnson, who works as our ADU expert here at the Napa-Sonoma ADU Center and is also the founder of Pocket Housing LLC. Amity's going to drop his longer bio in the chat for you to hear more about all of the wonderful expertise that he brings to Napa-Sonoma ADU Center and to his work at Pocket Housing. And then I also want to introduce to you two wonderful folks who are joining us this evening from Redwood Credit Union. Shawn Charter, who's worked in the mortgage lending department at RCU, processing mortgage loans for 10 years. And also Lorene Barnes, who joined RCU in 2016 as the mortgage lending manager. So their bios are also being dropped in the chat. It is such a pleasure to get to work with Shawn and Lorene, and you all are going to really enjoy the thoughtful information that they have to share with you this evening. With that, let's talk a little bit more about what we're covering tonight. So we're going to do a quick overview of ADU 101, just to make sure we're all on the same page about what we're talking about. And then we're going to dive into the meat of our discussion this evening, which is a focus on Redwood Credit Union's financing options for accessory dwelling units, both some of their traditional products as well as specifically an ADU loan product that they've developed. And it really is exciting because it opens up financing for homeowners who might not otherwise be able to afford to build an accessory dwelling unit. So I know a lot of you I've already spoken with, and you've been really looking forward to this evening's content. Some of you might have joined us back on January 27th. We were joined at that webinar on January 27th by Shawn and Lorene talking about this product. Tonight is going to cover the same content, and we're going to go into a little bit more detail based on some of the questions and feedback we got after the January 27th webinar. So if you joined us on January 27th, please feel free to join us again tonight. Want to just let you know up front, we are going to cover some of the same information, but we are going to go into more detail later on in the evening, specifically about that loan product in response to some of your questions. So I also just want to make sure that you all know, if you're joining us for the first time, that Napa-Sonoma ADU Center is a nonprofit organization. We're a nonprofit with the goal of helping homeowners across Napa and Sonoma counties build accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units. Our motivation is to increase housing affordability in our community, and you can learn a lot more about us at napasonomaadu.org. In a moment, I'm going to talk about our resources, but I want to also just make sure that you're aware we have monthly and sometimes more than once a month webinars where we cover a really wide range of content on ADUs. In our webinar this evening, we're not going to be able to cover all of the things that we'd like to share about ADUs. However, we have a library of on-demand webinars. Amity is going to be sharing links with all of you in the chat to some of those webinars, and they cover all kinds of stuff from a deeper dive into ADUs 101, testimonials from your neighbors across Napa and Sonoma counties that have successfully built ADUs, talking about their budget, talking about barriers they confronted, lessons learned, and their successes on their projects. We have a bunch of webinars in partnership with various cities and counties across this region, talking about how to do an ADU permit application, all kinds of things. So definitely check out our website for all of that. And just know that tonight we're going to do a snippet of ADUs 101, and then we're going to talk about financing your ADU with Redwood Credit Union. All right, so I mentioned some of the resources our nonprofit shares, and I also just want to share this list here with you. Again, we don't have time to get into all of it, but definitely go to our website. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a little drop down, says resources. Hover over that and you'll see all of these various resources, all designed to set you up for success with your ADU or junior ADU build. Another thing that we offer is one-on-one support to homeowners with any of their questions about ADU rules or permitting processes in their specific jurisdiction. So you can reach out to us any day and ask us your ADU questions. We have wonderful partners at the planning and building departments across the jurisdictions in Napa and Sonoma counties who help us make sure that we get you accurate information and support them in getting information to you. With that said, just to be clear, we are a separate, neutral third-party entity, separate from our local government agencies. We're a nonprofit organization that's here to help homeowners connect with professionals in the ADU world and have more productive, more efficient conversations with your local planning and building departments throughout the ADU planning, permitting, and building process. With that, we also offer an ADU feasibility consult. So this is a service where we meet with you one-on-one. We talk about your goals for building an accessory dwelling unit. We talk about your particular property and the type of ADU that might be best for your property. We do pre-screening on your parcel to make sure there are no eligibility concerns that you should be aware of that might preclude you from building an ADU. Most folks across the state of California will absolutely be eligible to build an ADU and a junior ADU on their parcel, but we make sure for you and talk you through what is going to be the best next steps for you, the best professional team for you to put together to successfully build your ADU. So definitely sign up for a free ADU feasibility consult today. We really look forward to meeting with you and being there to support you every step of the way. With that, I'm curious to hear from all of you a little bit more. What type of ADU build do you think you would choose? So we're very interested in this because, as some of you may be aware, prefab ADUs are gaining in popularity as of just the last couple of years. And we see folks who are interested in prefab modular, aka state certified ADUs, manufactured ADUs that are regulated at the federal level by HUD. Some folks are interested in panelized prefab. Others really want to go the traditional stick-built route. So we're just curious if you even know what type of prefab, or maybe just generally you're interested in prefab or that traditional stick-built. Love to hear it, because we shape all of our content our content and educational tools and resources available on our website, and our other services around the trends and preferences that we're seeing in our community. If you are curious to learn more about prefab, we have an entire webinar that's on demand on our library on our website, and it walks you through the details of those different types of prefab. And this is really great to see your interests here. So 50% of you are interested in traditional stick built. Let me tell you that even a few months ago, I think we would have seen a smaller percentage. We really are seeing increased interest in prefab. And really the answer is the best type is going to be very specific to you, to your goals, to your budget, to your property. And so that feasibility consult is a great opportunity for us to talk to you about your specific project and what type of prefab or traditional stick built might be best for you. So interesting to see those answers. Thank you all for sharing. Okay, with that, let's dive into our ADUs 101 content. First of all, just again, making sure we're all on the same page when we're talking about ADUs. What do we mean when we say ADU or accessory dwelling unit? There are 5 different types of accessory dwelling units, as you can see from this slide. I'm not going to go into all of them. I think a lot of us think about like a granny flat or a mother-in-law suite when we're talking about ADU. Those are super common. So those might be an interior conversion of existing space or attached above the garage. You can also have a backyard cottage or casita, so a separate detached unit from the house. And then another one that folks don't always know about is a junior ADU. So a junior ADU is a separate, totally separate from being an ADU. And I make that distinction because thanks to the January 2020 state laws that went into effect, most homeowners across California are actually eligible to build both an ADU and a junior ADU on your parcel. So a couple key differences between an ADU, which is those 5 types on the slide, and a junior ADU is a junior ADU is actually a conversion of existing space. So in the primary residence, or depending on the jurisdiction, it can sometimes be in an attached garage, no larger than 500 square feet. It can actually share a bathroom with the primary residence if you want, or it can have its own bathroom. And it's would have an efficiency kitchen. So those are a couple of the distinguishing factors between an ADU and a junior ADU. The final key piece is a junior ADU does have an owner occupancy requirement. So the homeowner has to live either in the junior ADU or the main house if they have a junior ADU and are renting out the other unit. We see a lot of folks who are seniors in our community here in Napa and Sonoma counties who are really interested in doing a junior ADU because it's a conversion of already existing space. It's usually going to be space that's, especially if in the primary home, it's already up to building code for habitable space. So it's going to be the most affordable type of extra unit that you can build. So let us know if you're interested in a junior ADU as a way to be able to age in place and remain on your property. We are here to help you either with one of the 5 types of ADUs or a junior ADU or both. Okay, with that, I think I have talked enough. I'm going to hand it over to Scott Johnson, who's going to talk a little bit about the ADU process, a little bit about budget and financing, a little bit about our ADU calculator tool, which you can find on our website, and tee it up for Shawn and Lorene to talk to us about Redwood Credit Union and their financing options. So with that, take it away, Scott.
Thank you, Renee. When we talk about the ADU process, for most people, if you haven't gone through a large construction project, many question, what does that process actually consist of? And this is a simplification of that process. For most of you, or if you're at this webinar, you are in the first stage. You're in the pre-development stage. And the pre-development stage, sort of anything is possible. There are a million choices. It can be very confusing and overwhelming to try and figure out what makes sense for you and for your budget. And so pre-development is first sort of defining what you can't build, what you want to be able to build, and you do that through a couple of different means. So the primary one, of course, and this is sort of the most important part early on, is figure out what your budget is, and figuring out your financing can help you determine your budget. Different financing options can lead to different potential outcomes. So, if you go to prefab, which I'll talk about briefly in a minute, There are some financing options that are available for prefab, and there are some that aren't. And there are some options that are available for normal stick construction, and some financing options that aren't. So figuring out how you want to finance and what you want to build, they kind of go hand in hand. And all that, and talking with us and doing a consult and everything else, that kind of gets you to the point where you can start to hire your professional team and get into design development. And that's where you're working with an architect and a contractor to really define in detail what your project's going to be. And at the end of design development, you'll have a package of papers to hand off to your local jurisdiction, which gets you into permitting. And permitting is where there's sort of a give and take between the design team and the local jurisdiction, where they answer questions and further define the project. And at the end of that process, you have a building permit. And then you're into construction. And this is where the part where most people think of when they think about building an ADU. This is the hammering, the nails, the sheetrock, the contractor, and this is the most visible part. But you've already kind of gone through 3/5 of the process already by the time you get to construction. And then at the end of construction, in which there are inspections and there are subcontractors and choices still to be made. Is do you really want to go with the tile that you chose early on? At the end of construction, you'll get your occupancy permit, and then you can have someone move in or move into it yourself or start renting it. And so those 5 pieces, being at the start, is where you can really set yourself up for success by doing as much research as you can. And by joining this webinar, you're doing research right now. And I would say, take notes, start a binder, start thinking about what your possibilities could be, what you're hoping it would be. But it will really help you move forward with confidence and quickly to get your ADU built. And one of the things in the process map at this pre-development stage that we talk about, we have a calculator that we offer. I'm going to share my screen right here. Let's see. Always takes me a second to find the right window. There we go. We have a calculator that you can use at our website that you can help put in some of the things you're thinking about to figure out what makes sense for your particular situation. And I'm just going to step through this very quickly, but this is the page that you get when you load it. You select the city that you're in, and it's important to know the jurisdiction you're in. You may have a mailing address that says Napa, but you're actually in the county of Napa, or there are many other cities like that as well. You're actually in the county, so knowing what jurisdiction you're in, and that will help you choose, because we have the unincorporated counties here as well. So we're going to choose Napa. We're going to do a 600 square foot detached ADU. So this is new construction. We're not going to convert in an existing space. And then as we scroll down, you have the other options here: a modular conversion to the finished part of the house, unfinished part of the house, like an attic or a basement. And then we're going to say it's going to be 1 bedroom, it's going to be 1 bathroom, and you can adjust the square footage down here. But this will start to give you a sense of the overall cost of what your potential rent could be in the city of Napa for space this large, what the expenses would be if you take into loan payment and property taxes and everything else, and what the generalized construction costs are. And what this is a great first step to kind of see what the big numbers are and start to see what sizes you could go for and what the construction costs could be. But there's a lot more detail that you can add to this. For example, each one of these is a separate tab where you can refine the numbers that you're getting. You have different options of the quality of construction. Is it sort of a basic rental, linoleum instead of tile? You can go with low cost, and it changes your cost, it changes your potential rent. But it might make more sense to do it this way, or you can also go the other way and make it a premium. And again, the costs will update. We also have some challenges of the site condition and the type of septic system that you have. Or yeah, if you have a septic system, and if you do have a septic system, that is step 0 to figure out with the county whether or not you can have an ADU. But for tonight, the primary thing we want to talk about, of course, is finances, and this is the finance tab. This allows you to put in different scenarios to figure out what kind of payments you may have, and what kind of financing that you could get or would make sense for your project. So you can change your cash investment up here. You can change the length of the loan. You can change the interest rate, depending on whether you're doing a cash out refinance or you're going for an ADU loan. And then we have insurance costs and property tax rate, which is typically, I think, 1 to 1.25 in most of Napa and Sonoma counties. And then if you use a property manager, which takes a percentage of every month's rent. And then the increased value to the value of your home. So these things are all adjustable. And then you can also see here kind of the timelines to earn back your initial investment, timeline, the increase in home value, the projections of rent over 10, 20, and 30 years. So these can all really give you a better sense of what kind of numbers are you looking at for the different scenarios that you're interested in. And then very briefly, we have prefab here at the beginning. When we choose the type of construction, modular prefab. And this, prefab can be the answer for a lot of people because it's in some ways it's a simpler choice. You don't have to manage the design, you don't have to manage the construction, because that's usually handled for you by the prefab company. Depending on the prefab company, when we talk about prefab and modular, it's a huge range of possible solutions from, something they call panelized, which is essentially like an IKEA flat packed house that then gets constructed more traditionally on site, to a full turnkey. You write a company a big check, they show up 6 months later, they do the foundation, they install the house, and they hand you the keys. And all in between that are all kinds of different options, and they're not all apples to apples. So you want to be careful, and we have a webinar about the prefab stuff to look into exactly what you'd be getting for your money. When it comes down and you look at the total cost, it's a little cheaper than custom construction, but it also doesn't work on every site. Site access, site slope, ability to, if you have to crane it over your house, all those things can change the viability of prefab. And so if you're thinking of prefab, it looks like there was a lot of you who are thinking about prefab, it's really worth investigating those options for your particular project about what makes the most sense. But send this back. Go. So yeah, that's prefab in a nutshell, but we have a lot more information about prefab for those of you who are interested.
Thanks so much, Scott. That was so helpful. And if you guys missed it, Amity dropped the link in the chat to that ADU calculator tool. So definitely check it out. It helps give you a rough estimate on the front end of budget for an accessory dwelling unit. Obviously, there are going to be variables that a calculator tool online cannot take into account. If you join us for a free ADU feasibility consultation, we can talk through in more detail some of the cost drivers for your particular parcel, property, and type of ADU. So would love to meet with you and talk about that. With that, I'm going to hand it over in a moment to Shawn and Lorene, who are going to talk to you about how you can finance your ADU with Redwood Credit Union. And before I do that, I just want to provide some important context. So we're so excited that Redwood Credit Union is going to share with you about a new ADU construction loan product that's going to make it possible for folks who might not otherwise be able to finance an ADU to do so. So that's really key. And I say that because it's really going to depend on your particular financial circumstances and your particular project, whether or not that ADU construction loan product is going to be right for you, or whether another financing option is going to be right for you. So Redwood Credit Union is going to talk to you both about some of their traditional financing opportunities as well as this ADU specific product. And then, as you all know, if you've joined us before, we have a vendor registry that has all kinds of financial experts on it that you can check out as well. This is really going to be an incredible opportunity for you to get a snapshot of different financing options available and also this ADU specific product. I want to, with that, hand it over to Shawn and Lorene and let you all take it away. Thank you so much again for joining us. We are thrilled that Redwood Credit Union has brought this incredible opportunity to our community.
Thank you, Renee, and thank you for having us. I'm Lorene Barnes, and I'm one of the mortgage managers here at our Redwood Credit Union. I'm here with Shawn Charter, who is our assistant manager of our construction lending department, and we are so excited to partner with Napa Sonoma ADU Center and to be here tonight. It's a great opportunity to share, financial opportunities and financial solutions. For what you're trying to do with building accessory dwelling units, adding additional housing, adding additional financial resources. We love to talk all things mortgage, and specifically tonight about the ADU products. So through our construction product, we're excited to be able to further assist our communities, kind of replace and contribute to additional housing solutions, and again, to just help with that financial wellness for homeowners and additional opportunity for income sources. So with that, we'll talk a little bit about Redwood Credit Union. So I want to share a little bit about where we came from and who we are. We were established January 19th of 1950. So we are just now 72 years young. We just celebrated our birthday. And RCU is a financial cooperative. We are based on the premise of people helping people. And I think that fits very nicely with who we're partnered with tonight. Our mission is to passionately serve the best interest of our members, our employees, and our communities. We initially served employees of Sonoma County, which was created of 6 people in 1950, which then became Redwood Credit Union as we know it today. So hopefully a lot of you are familiar with Redwood Credit Union. And for those of you that aren't, we would love to share what we do with you. Come to today's time, we enter 2022, and we're now serving those who live or work in 8 participating counties with over 400,000 members. So we've grown just a tad. We offer traditional residential financing with a variety of first and second mortgage lien products. And more recently, we introduced construction financing options for rebuilds and new home builds, including what we're going to talk about tonight, financing and assistance for your ADU product. So next, I'm going to talk about the RCU difference. So the RCU difference is we're a full service financial institution. We're a local lender who's been in our community for over 70 years, as we just talked about. We offer out of the box thinking and a common sense approach to those we serve. So, we're local, we're there for you, but we really want to help our members. We really want to be able to think outside the box, look at each individual situation, and help our members to achieve their financial goals. So that's what makes us a little bit different than other organizations. We as an organization are committed to volunteering with nonprofit organizations, such as tonight, within our communities, and we strive to support our communities in which we serve. After the Valley Fire of 2015, we created the RCU Community Fund, which is our own 501(c) nonprofit. And then fast forward 2 years, and after the 2017 Tubbs fire, we decided to take an even greater position in helping to rebuild our community. And with that, we developed our construction lending team. So managing our members' insurance rebuilds was our primary focus. We wanted to get people up and going again that we knew needed help. But we also wanted to be a resource to those in our community who were looking to purchase fire lots and build new homes, as well as financing to those who lost their homes to rebuild. It was a huge accomplishment to be able to create this support system and this ability to help those within our communities. Our primary aim has been to help our community members get back into their homes and to help communities rebuild what was lost. We offer flexible financing with competitive rates and low fees, and we work with members to achieve their financial goals and dreams of homeownership. So with that, we now have taken that construction and lending team, that rebuild product, and Shawn's going to share with financing options for our ADU product. So take it over, Shawn.
Awesome. Thank you, Lorraine. I love hearing that history of RCU, where we came from, where we are now. It all points to the fact that we love being positioned in our community to help our members and our communities grow and rebuild and achieve their financial goals. So excited to partner with Napa Sonoma ADU because, as we know, the housing crisis and the housing crunch is really big in our communities. And being with an organization who's really looking for solutions and trying to help people accomplish solutions to ease that housing shortage, provide housing security for people in our communities. Being a partner in that is right up RCU's alley, and it's something that we love to be involved in. So I'm excited to present some financing options that RCU has in order to enable you to potentially build your ADU project in your property. I did this myself at my own home, converted an existing detached garage to an ADU. So I went through the process, obviously through the traditional financing process. We didn't have our ADU construction product at the time, but I did that. I had the build done and have family living there now. So I am well in tune with a lot of the reasons why people would choose to build an ADU for themselves, their families, for rental income, for property value, all of the above. So So our traditional financing options, if you've done mortgages in the past, if you're familiar with the mortgage process, a lot of these will sound very familiar. They are, compared to construction lending and construction process, simple, straightforward, easy to navigate. The first vehicle is a first mortgage cash out refinance. So if you have the equity in your existing property to get the funds you need for your project out of it, you can refinance your first mortgage and take the cash out of the equity. And then you have a lump sum of money at the end of that process that you can use to begin and go through your ADU construction project. The fixed rate second mortgage is a similar kind of option. And that particular product enables you to keep your first mortgage in place without having to refinance it. So let's say you've got an amazing rate on your first mortgage that you just don't want to get rid of. You can do a fixed rate second mortgage and you can get a lump sum of money out of the equity of your home, and you can have that money available to you as soon as you close the loan to use for your ADU build. With the fixed rate second mortgage, you start paying the principal and interest payments as soon as you get that money and you're done with the loan. So, you know, the next month later, you've got a second mortgage payment that you need to make, regardless of whether you've needed to use that money or not. But it's been dispersed to you, so you start making payments immediately. The third option is also a second lien product. It goes behind a first mortgage, just like the fixed rate second, but it's our home equity line of credit. So what this does is it provides you with a maximum line of credit, much like a credit card. And you can take draws against that line of credit whenever you need to, up to the maximum that you've been approved for. The home equity lines of credit are variable rate products based on the prime rate. So they could fluctuate on a month-to-month basis depending on what the prime rate does. But the benefit of them is you don't have to take all the money at once. You can use it as you need it and only pay on what you've drawn against. So while the rate may fluctuate, you're not tied to paying a payment on the full balance of that line of credit unless you draw it all down at once. So if you use $1,000 here, $5,000 there, your payments are going to be lower until you use it up to the limit. The qualification for all of these options is based on the current property values and without the benefit of any potential rental income. So it's very much looking at what exists now, your current home, your current property, and your current income levels. And the options are going to give you funds upfront that you can use for your project. So you basically get the funds, and then it's up to you to use them as you need for your project. With the advent of our construction lending team, like Lorraine said in her introduction, as we got a construction lending team together, we developed the ability to become fund managers. So this ADU construction loan that has been developed has kind of mashed together the best parts of our existing financing options as well as construction financing to try and provide a solution for borrowers who may need these expanded guidelines or just want someone else to manage the funds for the project instead of themselves. So at a glance, our ADU construction loan is a 20-year fixed rate second mortgage. It's got a 12-month draw period in which time you would be having your ADU built on your property. And during that time, you're going to make interest-only payments on the amount that you've used. The rate is at 4.375%, and loan amounts are available up to $300,000. A little more detail, the second mortgage, the 20-year fixed rate second mortgage still enables you to keep your first mortgage in place. So you don't have to refinance your first mortgage like you would in other traditional construction loans. It's really helpful because you can qualify on the as complete future property value. So this is where we've kind of married construction loans and our construction experience with our traditional financing. We will get your plans and specifications and we will give them to the appraiser, and the appraiser will give us their opinion of what your property is going to be valued at when the project is complete. So you're going to get credit for the value that the ADU adds to your property in terms of your qualification for the loan. We will also use the future potential rental income for qualification. So we'll have the appraiser provide us with their opinion of the market rent for your ADU, and give you a portion of that rental income to qualify you for the loan as well. So two pieces of the puzzle right there. If you don't have the equity in your existing property to get the amount of money you need to do your project, this product can help with that by using the future value. If your income is tight and your debt ratios are a little high, we're going to be able to credit you with a potential future rental income, and that can help you qualify for this particular ADU construction product. We will also go up to 90% loan to values, so you can access more of your home's equity. And the last piece is we will partner with you to help manage your project, manage your funds for the project. So, you know, maybe you do have plenty of equity. Maybe you can qualify for the loan with no problem, but you just don't want to deal with being the financial manager of your project. We'll step into that role for you as well. And, you know, that was a big piece of my own project. I would get invoices from my contractor. I would get invoices that he passes along to me from the subcontractors and suppliers. And it was up to me to make sure that those invoices got paid and that everything looked good and was done to my satisfaction. And, you know, I managed it, but at some points it could be nice to have someone taking that on for you. So that's another piece of why this particular project is so helpful, is because we'll manage that piece for you. And if you can kick back to that last slide one more time, sorry. And then the qualifications for it. So, you know, we're going to qualify you based on standard credit qualifications, similar to any other mortgage that you would apply for. We'll partner with you for the assessment of your property value. Like I said before, we're going to work with an appraiser to come up with what that future property value is. And we can also process your applications as a pre-approval if you would like as well, because we understand that there are significant costs to beginning a project like this. Before you even get to the development and the breaking ground and getting a contractor, you need to get plans and permits, and those pieces of the puzzle can cost thousands of dollars. So if you're just kind of wondering, hey, is this even feasible for me? We can take a look at that option and see what a maximum approval might look like, so that you can make an informed decision of whether a project like this is even possible for you or not. So project documentation that we look for in the ADU construction loan, on top of the traditional credit documents, we do want to have an approved building permit, a complete set of plans and specifications with the approving authority's stamp of approval, and the fixed price construction contract and line item project budget. So all of those pieces are going to be important in the valuation of the property and the project. And we also need to see that, you know, the plans that you've developed have been approved to be built on your property in order to finance that on there. And then the contractor you choose, we do need to see that they're currently licensed. We do need their W-9 for tax reporting purposes. And we need to know that the contractor's got general liability and workman's compensation insurance. So those are the project documentation pieces that we would need in order to do the ADU construction loan. And quickly, to compare our ADU construction loan to our other second lien products. So I mentioned that we've got a HELOC and we've got a fixed rate second mortgage. So our ADU construction loan is a fixed rate second mortgage, whereas HELOCs are variable with the prime rate. The ADU construction loan is a 20-year loan, whereas our existing second lien products have a maximum of a 15-year amortization. So you have 5 extra years to reduce the monthly payment a bit and provide that longer payback period. We will go up to 90% CLTV or HCLTV, the value ratios on the ADU construction loan. We'll only go up to 85% on the existing second lien products. We will use your future value and proposed rents to qualify the ADU loan, whereas we only use the existing value and your current income level to qualify the existing products. And lastly, we will be the fund manager for the ADU construction loan. And if you get an existing second lien loan product, you have to act as your own fund manager and pay the money out yourselves. So what does this look like? Funds management is kind of a broad term, but in construction loans and this ADU construction loan specifically, in a nutshell, what this looks like is the contractor submits a draw request to us. We will schedule an inspection and have that completed and make sure that the work that's been done is reflective of what's being billed for. We'll go back and forth and work with the contractor to get required paperwork and or invoices that may be necessary from the contractor. And then as soon as we have everything and it looks good, we'll partner with you, the member, to issue payment and get that approved to the contractor. And that process repeats a few times throughout the process of the build until it's complete. And then your project is done. Your loan converts to its fixed rate principal and interest payment, and then you've got your 20-year amortization to pay it off in full. So I'm really excited for the product that we've developed. We've gotten a lot of good response out of it. It seems like it's touching some really great points that people are excited to hear about. And I'd love to talk more with anybody who's interested about different financing options for a project like this with their home.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Shawn. That was fantastic. Sign me up. I want you to help me manage my fund management and everything. That just sounded so great. And the pre-approval piece really gives me peace of mind as well when I hear that as a homeowner. So helpful. Really appreciate your detailed explanation there. And I have to say, kind of zooming out as someone who's really deeply entrenched in the ADU world in the state of California and nationwide, that Redwood Credit Union here locally has created an ADU specific product that really stands out from the crowd. So homeowners here in Napa and Sonoma counties, we are so lucky to have this as a resource. And we're so grateful to Redwood Credit Union for your continued support of our community. It really is huge. So glad that you all get to connect directly with Shawn and talk about what is going to be a good option for you. And with that, I know you all are adding all those questions to the chat. So we're going to turn to those shortly. In the meantime, Amity, if you haven't already, if you don't mind resharing Shawn's contact information. And if folks want to just drop their contact information directly into the Q&A chat, you can also do that as well. Shawn and Lorene will grab your contact info and proactively just reach right out to you. So whatever is most convenient for you. All right, so we're going to turn to those questions, but first you see this slide teasing our Permit Ready ADU Plans program. This is something I'm really excited about and actually segues so nicely from what we were talking about with the ADU construction loan product, because the Permit Ready ADU Plans program is a program that Napa Sonoma ADU Center is developing in collaboration with the jurisdictions across Napa and Sonoma counties. And one of the big goals with this program is to actually cut down significantly on design costs related to your ADU. So the idea is we're going to have a gallery of ADU plans that are available at a one-stop shop website. They're going to be linked from the jurisdictions that are participating. And they're going to be pre-vetted by a third-party consultant that's been approved by your jurisdiction to say, this is an ADU plan that we feel good about in terms of the building code, and there may be some changes that need to be made for your specific product, but it's set up for success to get through that ADU permit process more rapidly than the average ADU project. And also, instead of spending thousands of dollars, sometimes you may for a design spend even up to $18,000 or $20,000, depending on the ADU. These are going to have a license fee that's capped at $1,000 up to $2,000 maximum. And so as long as you don't need to engage the designer or architect who created those plans for additional hourly work, which in certain cases you probably will for a little bit, but it's going to cap that cost at close to that $1,000 to $2,000 license fee, as opposed to the thousands of dollars that you might otherwise pay. So that's really going to be helpful for folks, for example, that are interested in the ADU construction loan. As Shawn mentioned, you do need to get your permit in hand before you can get that loan. But thanks to their pre-approval process, you're going to have a really good sense of that possibility up front. And then if you work with us through this Permit Ready ADU Plans program, you're going to save on those design costs up front as well. So stay tuned. We're going to be launching that program this year. We're really excited about it. It's been wonderful to collaborate with our jurisdictions. And with that, let's turn to our questions. First question is, oh, and thank you, Amity. We have so many other webinars, so check out our website, but let's get to our Q&A. First question sent in by a homeowner in advance is, from previous webinars, it sounds like Redwood Credit Union's product is just for existing home buyers. My question is, does Redwood Credit Union plan on creating a loan product that would allow a home buyer to purchase a home and build an ADU wrapped into one mortgage? Or are a home style or construction loan the only two options for doing this? So I'll hand it to Lorene or Shawn for that one.
That's a great question. A construction loan or home style renovation loan would be your two options for that if you wanted to purchase and get financing to either significantly renovate or build a home on the land or property you're purchasing. So there are loans available where you get the proceeds to buy the property and do your construction project in one transaction. Up front, the challenge that I've come up with against that is, in order to close the loan, we need plans, permits, a lot of advanced documentation for a project like that that isn't necessarily ready at the time you're purchasing, unless the property is being sold with plans and permits and all of that ready to go. So many times sellers aren't willing to wait out that escrow period and give you the time to develop those plans and permits ahead of time. But yes, there are products that do enable you to purchase a property and finance a project like that in one.
Thanks so much, Shawn. All right, I have another question for you, which is, can qualifying for loans be just as easy if we're not planning on renting the ADU out if we have enough equity?
So that's where these conversations are great, because if you do have plenty of equity in your property right now, if you don't necessarily need the rental income to qualify, it may be more simple and straightforward to look at getting a HELOC against your property or a fixed second mortgage or doing a cash out refinance. In those cases, it would essentially come down to whether you really mind being your own fund manager or you really want us to be the fund manager for you. But the simplicity can fit your financial situation depending on what works best for you. So.
Thank you, Shawn. So Shawn, we have a bunch of questions from Chelsea, and I want to turn it to you to just turn to those questions in writing. Just repeat the question and then answer it so that you can answer them in an order that you think makes sense.
So question number one, Chelsea, has this ADU specific product been implemented yet with homeowners building ADUs, or is it brand new? Curious how contractors feel about additional inspections or management from a bank. This ADU construction product is brand new for us, so it has not been in play in the market yet. We have had our construction lending team, and construction loans are well known throughout the construction industry. So our fund management, the inspection process, and fund management wouldn't look any different than a traditional construction loan. So contractors should be familiar with that process and know what to expect when it comes to doing a project where an institution is involved in that. In terms of how they feel about it with regards to an ADU project, I can't say. I don't know if they would feel any different about it compared to a larger project or a smaller ADU project.
Thanks, Shawn.
And the $300,000 limit seems like a challenge for a 1,200 square foot ADU in Sonoma County. The $300,000 loan limit is a limit that we've just had in place for our second lien products. So we stayed consistent with what we have for those. And that's a conversation that we could have one-off looking at specific details, but that set our initial guideline there. What happens if construction takes longer than a year? Hopefully it won't. ADU construction should be somewhat simpler than doing a whole home. But if it takes longer than a year, then we're happy to work with you to extend that period if need be, and make sure that, you know, the ultimate goal is to finish your project, get it built, and have you in position so that you've got your ADU built and your property is what you want it to be.
Great answer, Shawn, because I will say we are seeing a lot of projects take more than a year. And we are seeing a lot of ADUs, if they're not an internal conversion or prefab, be quite complex. So that's really helpful to hear. Thank you, Chelsea, for that great question. Shawn, do you want to tackle Chelsea's last question there?
The general contractor on the project can be related to the borrower or the homeowner. The only requirement is that they are a licensed general contractor. So if that's the case, then great. I know a lot of people who have contractors in the family are, you know, excited for the prospect of saving some money on profit and overhead and project management supervision costs and things like that. But as long as they're licensed, then that's the main requirement that we have. And
that's great, Shawn. Do you want to turn to Victor's question? I can read it out. If I plan on a standard ADU that's stick built, that's connected to the main home, can some of the loan be used to refurbish the exterior of the main home? Great question, Victor.
That is a great question. Our ADU construction loan is going to be required to build the ADU. So it's not going to be as general use in the funds as a HELOC or a fixed second mortgage, where you would have the freedom to use the money however you needed to. With that said, if we reach the end of the project for the ADU and there was still some room left over in the funds that were remaining, we could look at probably using those for home improvement if we got receipts, invoices, things of that nature. But the primary function of the ADU construction loan would be to complete that ADU build.
Thank you for that, Shawn. And then from Jason, is the Redwood Credit Union ADU construction loan a feasible product for a junior ADU, which is the conversion of already existing interior space in the primary home or an attached garage?
Exactly, yes. So whatever you want to do, if you needed financing to convert internal space to a junior ADU, if you needed financing to put an external addition on your existing house as an attached ADU like that, or convert a detached garage, build a new structure, whatever your project entails is what we would be able to use that ADU construction loan financing for.
Wonderful. Thank you, Shawn. I want to turn to a couple of the questions because I think we've covered a lot of those questions that have come in. If folks have more questions, feel free to ask your question or input your contact information if you'd like Shawn to reach out to you directly one-on-one. But we have a couple questions that Scott has answered in writing for some folks, and I want us to talk about them and elaborate on them a little bit more, Scott, just because I think obviously costs of ADUs is pretty relevant topic to our conversation this evening. And the truth is, the sad truth is that costs have been increasing recently, thanks to supply chain issues with Omicron and labor shortage, also caused by COVID and exacerbated by the wildfires. So Scott, can you talk to, John's question that you answered in writing, maybe elaborate on that and some of the costs that we're seeing on average for cost per square foot, and also differentiating the hard and soft costs there a little bit, speaking to Catherine's question about soft costs and design costs.
Absolutely. So we've been reaching out to builders and designers and even cities in the area lately in the last few weeks, trying to get an updated sense of what costs are for building ADUs. And what we're hearing is pretty consistent across the board, but it's also pretty high. So and I've said this in other webinars, the smaller the ADU, the higher the cost per square foot, because every ADU has to have a kitchen and a bathroom, unless you're doing a junior ADU, which is a separate issue. And so if you're doing 500 square feet, you have a lot of cost concentrated in 500 square feet as opposed to 700 square feet or 1200 square feet. So with that said, sort of like it's really hard to get into an ADU new construction at less than $350 a square foot. We're hearing that for the middle range of ADUs, it's more typically going to be 420 to 450 a square foot. And for the smaller complex projects, possibly 500 a square foot. And I'll put garage conversions into those potentially complex projects because, and this depends very much on your own garage. And this is, I think in John's case, he wants to do a garage conversion. There are a lot of potential complications about having to move existing utilities to allow for the ADU to get built, such as the main power panel or the gas meter, or the washer dryer, the water heater. When you move those things around, you're also having to change all the existing wiring, existing plumbing for the house, and then also deal with the concrete. So garage conversions are a great place to start, but depending on the garage, they can also be complex. So that said, with we talk about those costs per square foot, and I'm primarily talking about hard costs in that sense, sort of the nails, the boards, the labor of actual construction in those costs. There's the soft cost portion, which happens in the design development. If you remember the flow chart I showed earlier, that happens in the design development phase, where you're working with an architect, you're working with, having the plan be looked at by structural engineers. If you have to do a soils report because you're doing a new foundation, all those kinds of costs where it's essentially one contractor said you're paying a lot for a lot of paper, but that paper you have to have in order to move forward. Those tend to be soft costs. And in talking with architects and designers, sort of the total soft costs we're seeing typically are somewhere between $6,000 and $25,000 for ADUs these days, depending on your project, as all of these costs are. But that will pretty much sort of get you to the point where you can apply for a permit. And then you've got the hard cost of construction.
And I'll jump in there too, Scott, because in my project, I was converting our garage and I had to have a giant trench dug across my backyard. And, the sewer line had to be put in. The electrical had to be run out there for the sub panel. There was a lot of utility work, like you said, that needed to be done. The only thing they didn't have to do is pour a foundation and put the 4 exterior walls up and a roof on. So everything else was brand new.
Yeah, and utilities are really our drivers. If any of you out there have been to one of the consultations, and if you sign up for one, you're going to hear me go on about utilities are really a cost driver for your project, and depending on how complex the utility solution has to be, can really dramatically change what the cost of your ADU is going to be.
That's really helpful, Scott. And since so many people were interested in prefab options, do you want to give a little bit of information about prefab costs as they compare to traditional stick built, and some of the pros and cons when it comes to timeline, although that of course is a moving target? And then also, I do just want to say, in case we're scaring people when we talk about costs, that I really do encourage you to take a deep breath and check out that calculator tool for a rough estimate, because again, when you click through those tabs and you see the return on your investment over time, it really does come back to you so much more quickly than you would anticipate. So really, this is why I highly encourage you to speak directly one-on-one with Shawn, because he is going to be really helpful to talk through your particular picture when it comes to the finance and the ROI. Similarly, I would encourage you to speak with Scott and myself directly and do an ADU feasibility consultation, because we can also help you get a realistic sense in real time about the likely rough estimate cost for your project. So the takeaway there is, yes, the cost per square foot is going to be higher than you might initially anticipate, perhaps. However, you might be shocked when you run the numbers how much more quickly than you would anticipate you'll see that return on investment, how much more doable the financing is going to be thanks to help from Redwood Credit Union and this ADU construction loan product if you otherwise wouldn't qualify. With that, I'm going to shut up, and as I promised a minute ago, turn it over to Scott for a little bit on the prefab.
Thanks, Renee. So prefab, there's a lot of, I talked about it briefly earlier. it tends to be a little bit less expensive than custom built. But you really, site access is a key thing. But you can, in many cases, historically, one of the great benefits of prefab was timeline. That you could collapse the timeline almost in half, because while the house is being built in a factory, or the walls are being built in a factory, the site work is being done. The foundation is getting built. The trenches for the utilities is getting cut. And so when the site work is finished, the house can show up and essentially be put on the foundation, bolted in, hooked up, and the final finishing pieces put together, but it can be built much more quickly. One of the challenges that we're hearing in with demand and supply line and everything else is that a lot of the factories that are building homes, they were going from a 3-month window or a 6-month window. They're now at a year window or 18-month window for when they're gonna be able to produce your house, simply because there's so much demand all over for more homes, for ADUs, to recover from fires all over the state. So the timeline, it's still probably faster in many cases than doing stick built, simply because of the availability of contractors is also very limited. And apples to apples, if you're comparing two very similar structures, the total cost ends up being probably within 15 to 10% of custom built.
Thanks so much, Scott. I really appreciate it. And all of you, we have hit 7 p.m. So we are going to close our conversation for this evening. Thank you for your wonderful questions. We would love to speak with you one-on-one. Reach out to Shawn, reach out to us for a feasibility consult. And please, if you have a moment, as we wrap up our evening, you're going to see a pop-up window with an anonymous survey. We would love your feedback on the webinar this evening. We're constantly striving to improve our services to continue to better serve our community. I want to say a huge thank you once again to Redwood Credit Union. Your service to our community is invaluable. We are so grateful to you for this incredible product and for all of your time and energy. Thank you so much. I know there are people who are going to be able to finance their ADU because of you. And thank you so much to all of you for joining us this evening. It's wonderful to get to know you. We want to hear from you. Reach out to us with your questions. We're here to help you. We're here to help streamline this process. We're here to help you find out how you can find a professional team to help take on all the complexities of the project so that this is as smooth and easy for you as possible. So thank you. Thank you again, Shawn and Lorene. Wonderful to be with you, and have a wonderful night, everyone. Take care.